Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome SBI Podcast listeners and video podcast viewers. My name is John Staples and I'm a partner at SBI, a sales and marketing consultancy dedicated to helping you make your number. With me today is one of SBI's principals, Mark Sinek. What's up, Mark?
Happy to be here, John.
Alrighty. The goal of our show is to help you make your number by speaking with sales and marketing experts on topics that include market research, corporate, product, marketing, sales, and talent strategies. I'm excited for our audience to hear from today's guest, Toby Murdoch. Toby is the co-founder and CEO of Kapost. Kapost is a content marketing software that helps marketers and content creation professionals organize their content marketing efforts into structured business process. Kapost specializes in ideation, production, distribution, and analysis of content marketing activities so brands can deliver relevant content to their audience and drive revenue.
Toby co-founded Kapost in late 2009 after co-founding and successfully selling Cloud, a social music service that allowed millions of users to share their musical identities. Toby has also worked at Ruckus and AOL. He has a BA from Duke University and a master's in information technology from Virginia Tech. Toby, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me and looking forward to trying to help your audience make the number.
Perfect. With today's ever-changing buyers and content demands in the marketplace, the ability to develop, manage, and distribute content is critical to any B2B's company's success. In order to help us guide our discussion, we're going to use SBI's revenue growth methodology, specifically Phase 5, pages 124 and 125 of the marketing strategy section. If you want to follow along at home, download a copy of our methodology at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. Toby, let's get started. Your brand promise is end content chaos. Can you explain to our audience where to start?
Sure. Well, content chaos for us, let me just dig into that a little bit and then we'll get to where to start. But there's sort of two levels of content chaos. How that chaos manifests to the buyer, and then the internal chaos around your operation to produce and distribute content. You know, I read over your guys' report, as I do, of course, diligently every year as soon as you publish it. And I think what you guys talk about and what we encounter with our customers, and we work with hundreds of large-scale B2B companies around their content challenges, I think we really see the world in a similar way. Externally, for the buyers that your customers and my customers and sales and marketing professionals are trying to reach, we provide a very unaligned, poorly aligned customer experience. And by that I mean all the touches along the entire customer journey, whether it's a blog post or a video at the top of the funnel, you know, a nurturing email or a webinar at the middle of the funnel, a sales deck or a case study at the bottom of the funnel, or even post-sale materials like a quick started guide. It's very disjointed. You know, the messages that you get at each one of those touches often have nothing to do with each other and aren't well aligned. And as a result, our efforts in bringing buyers down that process suffer and they aren't effective. And it's mostly a reflection of then the chaos that's occurring internally for sales and marketing teams, how they're in different silos across their organization, different silos that own different tools and channels at different spots along that customer journey and customer experience, and they're misaligned, they're not working together, so there's a lot of internal chaos and waste in terms of wasted content and duplication and inefficiency, and that's obviously a huge challenge and you know, causes a lot of damages for sales and marketing professionals. And then there's that external chaos in terms of what they present to the buyer. So that's the chaos that we talk about with our customers, and I think for most B2B sales and marketing professionals, this chaos is very familiar, and that's the essence of the problems that they need to challenge. the essence of the challenge that they need to fix.
So in terms of John's comment a moment ago, and I love the looking at it from two lenses, really external and then internal content chaos, what's kind of the starting point to address that once companies realize that that's the issue?
So for us, we see the challenge around content across two dimensions, if you will. One is the customer journey or the customer process, and the other is the content process. So to really master it all and have a fantastic aligned customer experience, an organization needs to manage content effectively across that entire customer journey and across that entire content process. So again, the customer journey is however you define it, from awareness to consideration, down to decision and into the post-sale experience, all those stages. And then the content process we typically describe as planning content, creating content, distributing content, and analyzing content, and those being the phases. So again, the end goal is doing all of that well across those two dimensions, but that's a lot. And so you raise a great point, where do you start? Where we say is to bite off a piece of each of those dimensions early on and then move step by step from there. So let me give you an example, right? So the customer journey is long, and essentially there's many groups that kind of own different phases of the customer journey. Corporate communications might own awareness really at the top. Customer marketing and the success team might own the post-sale experience. So let's take someone like product marketing. They might be right in the middle of the customer journey. So you can start with just that group, and instead of trying to bite off the entire content process, maybe you just start with a piece. Maybe you start with, again, product marketing and working on planning. So, hey, how can we better plan our product launches so that we fight against the chaos and we're more aligned both in how we face the customer and we're more aligned and transparent in how we operate internally. So that could be one piece to start. There's you could start with field marketing and sales around distribution. So that could be, hey, let's just, all the content we have, how can we distribute it and make it available to our sales team so that they can at least find the content that we have and be on the same page with the messaging that we're trying to deliver. So again, there's those two dimensions, the customer journey and the content process. You want to master all of them in order to have the winning customer experience, but you can start with just a piece of either side of those dimensions as a place to start. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'd like to start with the customer journey piece you mentioned. So the two pieces, customer journey. In order to really kind of demystify and understand the customer journey, you have to determine where, when, and how potential customers are consuming content. So what's the way in which you do that?
Yeah, that's a process where you really need to map and understand your customer journey, and as I'm sure you guys might be the first to say, what you need to understand is not the buying process that you see on your side or the sales process that you see from an internal lens, but really understand the customer journey, or even more the desired customer journey, because a lot of us as sales and marketing professionals today aren't providing that desired customer journey. I think a lot of the challenge around that is more towards the top of the journey, and I think we've all realized that now we have to talk at the beginning of the customer process, and given how the customer's in charge, less about ourselves and our own products and services, and more about the topics and challenges and issues that are of great interest to our customer. And that's how we have to engage them. That's how we have to earn their attention at the start of their journey. And so lots of efforts are going into that, of course, but the problem is that those are different teams and different silos, and so the messaging they're starting to deliver there is misaligned with what's happening further down at the traditional stages, in consideration, evaluation, and decision, where sales typically operates. So, yeah, you need to map out the whole journey, and there's, the terminology doesn't matter. People often start with awareness and go on down from there, but understand that the desired customer journey step by step. And it's not the kind of content. People always ask me, where does video go? Is that at the top of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel? The medium doesn't matter. It's the topics and the questions that the buyer is looking to answer at each stage is what you really need to focus on. The medium can come later and map that out. But then once you have that mapped out, the key is how then do you provide a consistent message across all of that? And I think that's the essence of the challenge that we see, B2B sales and marketing professionals wrestling with today.
Great insight. You can almost feel our audience leaning in, trying to hear a little bit more clearer. But let's take a short break and make the audience aware of one of SBI's offerings.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back. My name is John Staples, and I'm a partner at SBI, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Sinek, a principal at SBI. Our guest today is Toby Murdoch, co-founder and CEO of Kapost. Today, we're discussing campaign content management. We're using SBI's revenue growth methodology to guide our discussion. If you're following along at home, we're in Phase 5, pages 124 and 125 of the marketing section.
Before the break, Toby shared with us his perspective on ending the chaos of content management and how to determine where buyers consume content. We're going to continue with our content process discussion.
Toby, can you explain to our audience how to best manage their content production schedules and goal alignment?
Sure. Well, let's start with the goal, since that's the end game, and then we can work backwards from there. I think we have to really start with the objective in mind, with the goal, and we're not creating content, just to entertain ourselves with how wonderfully exciting the assets are that we can create. But I know you guys would agree it's all about attracting buyers to the funnel and moving them down that funnel process, creating new customers and then delighting those customers and having them generate repeat business. So we have to start, when you talk about the goal, with that object in mind. And so we advocate a methodology called content scoring, and it's really the only way to get clarity around all this content. B2B companies are spending tens of millions of dollars on all this content, but they don't understand what part of the content is working and what part of the content isn't working. And so you need to be able to look at all the touches your content is creating. As a buyer moves down the funnel, they can, for example, on their way to becoming an opportunity, a buyer might be able to touch a blog post and then a video and then another blog post and then a webinar and then an email. And understand, that buyer became an opportunity from those touches, and attribute the value of that opportunity back to those touches. And so you can say, hey, that blog post helped bring in this opportunity, and do that at great scale. There's a lot of complexity, and this is where technology can really help. But you need to be able to score your content and say, hey, this blog post has generated 52 opportunities, and this other blog post has generated 252. Why? What's the difference? What topics is blog post A about versus blog post B? Who wrote A? Who wrote B? What persona is it focused on? And start to see the pattern. So I think, when you talk about the goals and objectives for content, you have to have that end game goal. We're not creating this content for fun. We're creating it to attract buyers down the funnel and move them down. And then you've got to be able to score that content for how it's performing that job, so that you can learn the patterns around what's working and what's not working, and then you can improve. And if you don't do that, you're really not going to get anywhere.
You know, when you think about this classic idea of a subscription pyramid, traditionally we've been taught to think that buyers like to move from short form, less commitment type content, maybe a blog post, into longer form. Maybe they download a white paper, into more type of kind of customer intimate content. Maybe they're listening to a podcast like this, for example, and that buyers like to flow in that process. But one thing you said in the first segment, I was going to ask how content gets into the hand of buyers, but really one thing you said earlier stuck with me, which is type doesn't matter. So I'd like you to talk about that in the context of a classic subscription pyramid.
Sure, I think that makes sense. I think kind of both sides of it make sense. You know, if you pay for an ad and a buyer clicks on that ad and you send them right to a landing page where they have to enter their credentials in about themselves, their name and their email, and you're hoping that they're truthful, and then you expect them to download a lengthy ebook and consume it, you got another thing coming, right? That's just totally foolish. So there is something to be said that you have to develop an appetite with that buyer, develop a relationship before they're willing to do the higher investment content consumption. So they might start with the easy-to-get-at blog posts before they're ready for the webinars and the podcasts and the ebooks. And that's true. But at the same time, the reason why I think form doesn't matter so much, or we get too fixated on it, is the need for thought leadership never ends. You know, I know that you guys at SBI are very familiar with the Challenger sale, and that need to provide insights to the buyer. Yeah, it's really important to interest them and earn their attention at the top of the funnel, but it's just as crucial that the salesperson keeps demonstrating that thought leadership of their brand at the bottom of the sales process, and that can come in any form. That can come in a blog post or a video, not just super long content assets. And post-sale, you need to continue to demonstrate that thought leadership, often with those shorter form content assets. So yes, you have to warm your buyer up before you can bring out the big plates. You know, they're not going to digest the really big assets unless they've developed a degree of trust in you. But there's a need for that shorter form at all spots through the customer journey.
Good insight, Toby. I really appreciate especially the ideas around content consumption and type of content. I'd like to, if we could, take another short break and make the audience aware of one of SBI's offerings, specifically SBI TV.
You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. Each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for how they make their numbers. You are not going to want to miss this.
Welcome back. Mark and I are joined by Toby Murdoch, co-founder and CEO of Kapost. Today we're discussing the content management process, and we're using SBI's revenue growth methodology to guide our discussion, pages 124 and 125. Let's jump back into it. Toby, how do we test and constantly improve our content?
Well, that gets sort of to the answer that I mentioned before, so maybe I'm screwing up the questions, but again, it's around content scoring is what we would advocate, that too many people are looking at metrics around content regardless of whether or not it's helped the buyer move them down the journey. So, hey, this blog post did this many page views, or hey, this email was opened this many times. And so those metrics are divorced from whether or not the buyer actually moved down the funnel and whether or not that content asset assisted in that. So that's error number one that we see. Error number two we see is trying to evaluate content in its standalone silo. How are we doing with our webinars? And we look at those with blinders just at our webinars. versus how are we doing with our blog posts versus how are we doing with our videos, right? The technologies are separate, your webinar system versus your video system versus your blog system. And so that's where the metrics come from, and we tend to look at those on a siloed basis without an integrated understanding of how all those different content types are working in concert to move the buyer down their journey. So what we would recommend is you need, one, a really cohesive, integrated view of how your content's performing across all the channels, right? Because your buyer doesn't really give a crap about the different channels. They're just going as they want to go through your customer experience, and so you need that integrated approach. And second, I was mentioning the content scoring, you can't just look at the raw number of touches generated, but hey, did that touch help then move the buyer further down the journey? And again, you need to combine your content consumption analytics with your marketing automation and CRM data to see, were these touches effective in moving that buyer down through the through the customer journey. And that's what is done in this concept that we talk about as content scoring. And really, that's the only reliable way then to know, hey, this content A, B, and C is working, and this content X, Y, and Z isn't. And what are the differences from these? And then what are we going to learn about that? And how does that give us the insight to improve the content we create going forward?
I keep coming back to this idea of external and internal content chaos. And what I'd like to talk about now, and I really believe that we see sometimes at our clients that the content management solution is, a marketing associate who has 8,000 files on her computer, and she goes, oh, yeah, I remember that one, and then she goes and pulls it up. And John probably knows the clients I'm talking about. So,
sure, we know those customers too.
Great. So let me give you a platform here to talk about the importance of having a real content management solution and what that looks like.
Great. Well, I'm slightly biased because I'm the CEO of a company.
And that's why I asked you the question.
If you're giving me the invitation, I'll go ahead and answer that. So, I think it needs to be, first off, divorced from channels. My industry, we haven't done a great job of I think, branding what we do. So there's the need for a web content management system, whether that's Adobe, whether that's Drupal, any of the Sitecore, any of those solutions, that's never going to change. That's a good thing. Everyone needs to have a website. But the point is, there needs to be some system that sits above and behind your website and also behind your email system, also behind your blog system, your webinar system, your video system, that sits behind your sales channel and enabling the sales team, that sits behind your post-sale channel and your success and your services team, and something that can enable the content that needs to be fed to all those channels, whether they're tools or they're humans. So we call that marketing content management, and that's what Compose does. It sits behind all those, and it never delivers directly. That's what the email channel does, or the web channel does, or the sales channel does. But something needs to sit behind that to manage the process across all those tools and channels. And a good system should help you plan out what content can create. And you can say, hey, these are the campaigns we're doing, and here's the calendar for what content assets are going to be produced by whom and when for any one of those campaigns. So that's the planning side of it. Then you need the creation execution side, where you have notifications and workflow tools that coordinate all these different players across the enterprise for getting that content produced. You need a distribution ability. So once an asset is ready, you need to publish it into Adobe or into Eloqua or into your webinar system, so into those external tools. You need to be able to publish it internally to enable internal stakeholders, whether they're salespeople or marketing channel owners or post-sale professionals, and enable all them. And then you need an analytics system that can pull back the metrics from how content is performing at each one of these touch points across the entire funnel and process those numbers against CRM data so you can see how content's performing and doing its job and moving buyers down the funnel. So that's what we do at Compose, and I think B2B sales and marketing professionals are increasingly realizing that they can never succeed in this challenging new era of the customer that we're in without a tool that enables them to produce the content they need across all these channels.
I was hoping for a comprehensive answer given what you do for a living, and that's exactly what I got, and I thank you for it. Truly, Toby, that was...
I can talk long, so hopefully it didn't go too far, but I appreciate the opportunity.
No, it was fantastic. Now, we're going to take one more short break, if we could, to make the audience aware of one of our offerings, and we'll be right back with you, Toby.
Making your number is hard. Your problems are complex. Complex problems need complex solutions. Introducing the SBI Magazine. Read in-depth stories written by award-winning journalists about how your peers have overcome their problems to make the numbers. When you need more than a tweet, social post, or blog article, turn to the SBI Magazine. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com to subscribe.
Welcome back, everyone. In our final segment, we're going to summarize the discussion and provide some action items for you to apply in your business to help you make your number. Toby, let's put a bow on this. I would like you to speak directly to the audience. What are the top 3 things you recommend our audience do immediately following this show to help them make their number?
Well, again, guys, thanks for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity. And it goes back to a lot of what I've said before. I think we all realize it's the age of the customer, and in order for us to win with the customer, we need an outstanding customer experience across every element of the customer journey. And it's really content that defines that experience. So if you're going to make the number, you need to have a winning content operation to have that fantastic, outstanding customer experience. So I'd say one, they got to sit and think with themselves and say, hey, am I going to stop the madness and stop the chaos? That's number one, right? Or am I going to make a commitment to finally start doing something? I think all sales and marketing professionals in B2B know that they're suffering from this chaos and this madness. One, I got to stop. Hey, I got to stop this, and am I going to do something about it? So that's issue number one. Issue number two, we were talking about where to start. I think for them, they need to start to discern where to start. They can't do everything. We can't re-engineer our entire customer journey and our entire content process all in one motion. It's going to take a little while, so we can't try to do that, but they should try to then identify and nail down, hey, maybe I'm going to try to do better, planning out my demand gen campaigns. Or maybe I'm just going to try to do better in distributing content, through my sales channel. Wherever they feel like they want to start and have some focus in sort of taming that content chaos. So that would be piece two. And then piece three, and I'm biased here, but I really think, start to think about what tools they might consider to use. And Compose is one. There's a lot of others out there, but in this digital world with the proliferation of assets and customer touches and data is so gigantic, there's no way you can solve this content chaos problem without a technology tool. And so that would be the third step that I would urge them to take on.
I think that's a great insight for the audience. Okay, what does all this mean to you, the audience? It means if you're not managing and adjusting your campaign content, then you'll likely miss your number. If you want to make sure you get this right, get a copy of SBI's annual research report called How to Make Your Number in 2016 at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. If you're interested in learning more about marketing strategy and specifically the campaign content process, we'll have one of our experts lead you through a workshop. We'll detail how to do this. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and request a workshop.
Toby, John and I thank you for sharing your perspective today with our audience. We really appreciate it, and I know our audience will benefit greatly from hearing it. And I also want to thank you, the audience, for tuning in. This show has become very popular, and with this popularity comes our ability to get great guests like the one we had today. So thank you, and we wish you much success as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.